Okay, page 18, number 13. A group of elderly citizens chartered a bus for $160. However, at the last minute, 8 of them fell ill and had to miss the trip. As a consequence, the other citizens had to pay an extra $1 each. How many elderly citizens went on the trip? Okay. Let's say that the question they're asking is asking for what is X, okay? So X is how many actually went on the trip, okay? So X people went on the trip. How many originally planned to go on the trip? X plus 8, right? So before it was X plus 8 people. Afterwards it was just X people. The X plus 8 people were going to pay a certain price, original price, and they were going to pay $160, right? Afterwards, the X people ended up paying a price that was $1 more, which is P plus 1. One thing to keep in mind is the price of the bus continues to be $160, so even afterwards, they're still going to pay $160, right? This is kind of weird. We have two unknowns. We have X and P, and we know that in this chapter, we only are solving these problems when there's one unknown. How do we get rid of the P? Well, we could use elimination method. So let's solve for P. We're going to divide both sides by X plus 8 so that we can isolate P on the left side. And then we can just put it right there. So it's going to be X times 160 divided by X plus 8 plus 1 equals 160. What a mess, okay? This is good for your algebra chops. So now we don't like this X plus 8 in the denominator, so we're going to multiply everything times X plus 8, okay? So just to do it in an organized fashion, I am going to put it here first. Equals, and remember, if we multiply everything by X plus 8, that includes left and right side, okay? Now I'm going to distribute this to both of the things inside. So I'll have X, and then the 160 divided by X plus 8 times X plus 8 cancels out the X plus 8. That was the whole point of doing this, right? Then we have X plus 8 times 1, which is there. Then we can distribute the 160 times X plus 8. So it'll be 160X plus 160 times 8. That's like 1280 or something. Is that right? 64 times 20? Yeah, 1280. Okay, now I'm going to distribute the X. So I'm going to have 160X plus X squared plus 8X. So I'm going to simplify that. It'll be X squared plus 168X equals 160X plus 1280. Now I can look at these two sides, and then I'm going to combine like terms. So I have X squared on the left, subtract 160X from both sides, so that gives me 8X on the left side. Then subtract 1280 from both sides, and I get minus 1280 equals 0. We just want to know what X is, and I think it's easier if we just do poly-SMLT, don't you? So like this kind of problem is like poly-SMLT was made for this kind of problem. You just spent all this energy working on the problem, you're very tired, and then at the very end you get a factoring problem or quadratic formula, and you don't want to do it anymore. So that's why you flip out your calculator, because if there's one thing you hopefully don't need now is more practice doing quadratic formula. I mean, how many times do you need to do quadratic formula? Okay. And so the two possibilities are X equals negative 40 or 32. You always have to be wary of negative numbers, because usually they're illegal for the word problems that you're doing. Yeah, can you have negative 40 senior citizens? I think not. So the number of elderly citizens who went on the trip was X equals 32, because that's the only legitimate number you got there. Okay? So 32 went on the trip. Originally it was 40. Okay? Number 15. A truck carrying a wide load needs to pass through the parabolic tunnel shown. What a coincidence. A parabolic tunnel, and we're doing a quadratics chapter. Okay. The units are in meters. The truck is 5 meters high and 4 meters wide. Find the quadratic function which describes the shape of the tunnel. Determine whether the truck will fit. Okay. So let's do A first. Just ignore the information they gave you about the truck. You don't need that right now. Okay. Just look at the numbers here. There's -3 here, 3 here, 8 on top. Try to write the equation for that. Okay. So remember, if you know the x-intercepts, you can use factored form. If you know the vertex, you can use vertex form. Let's use factored form, shall we? But either one will work. So if we wanted to do factored form for these two x-intercepts, the factored form would be x minus -3, or x plus 3, times x minus 3, right? That would be the factored form. And of course, we don't know what a is yet. We do know that a is negative because the parabola opens down, right? And that equals y. How do we figure out what a is? Okay, we're going to take this point here, which happens to be 0, 8, and we're going to plug it in. So x equals 0, y equals 8, right? So 8 equals a times x plus 3, which would be 0 plus 3, which is 3, 0 minus 3, which is -3, and 8 equals -9a. So a is equal to -8/9. Okay, so we already know what a is. Does that help us? So it's basically this, and what if we expanded it? Does that help us at all? -8/9 times x squared minus 9. How many of you have been preparing for SAT can recognize that as a difference of squares? A plus b times a minus b equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, now I'm going to distribute this to see if it gets any simpler. -8/9 x squared minus, plus 8. Because -8/9 times -9, or -9, is 8. Does that help us? Okay, so that's our y value. Now it says, determine whether the truck will fit. Well, if we have the truck here, it is 5 high and 4 wide. So it goes basically from -2 to 2. So what we need to do is we need to figure out if these points are hitting the bricks or not. Okay? So what we can do is we can take 2 and we can plug it into the formula and see what the y value of the bricks are. Okay? So let's do that. So -8/9 times 2 squared plus 8. So that would be -8 times 4, which is -32/9 plus 8. Okay, and that would be -32/9 plus 72/9, because 8 is equal to 72/9, right? So that's equal to 40/9, which is equal to 4 and 4/9. Okay, how did I find that? I divided 40 divided by 9, and I got, if it was 36, it would be exactly 4. And there's 4 parts left over, so it's 4/9, okay? 4 and 4/9. So the bricks at this point are 4 and 4/9 meters high, and the truck is 5 meters high, so it would hit the bricks. It's slightly higher, right? That's unfortunate. Okay, so no. All right, and that's it for page 18.